Welcome back to the show. 12:39 is the time. Just a reminder of that breaking news. Brought you here first at Talk. A man who was on trial for burning a Koran. He's now basically been convicted. This is Hamit Coskun. He burnt a Koran outside the Turkish consulate. He himself has fled Turkey, but he has actually been convicted of carrying out disorderly behaviour within the hearing or sight of a person likely to have caused harassment, alarm or distress by burning a copy of the Koran, motivated by hostility towards members of a religious group. I didn't think we had a blasphemy law in our country. We certainly haven't had one for some years. Officially, we do now have a blasphemy law. Right now, let's talk to Ben Habib. He's the former Deputy Leader of Reform UK. Ben, I wanted you to talk about migration, but I'm sure you want to give your response to that extraordinary news that a man has been convicted for setting fire to his own book.
I completely agree with your analysis and Sam Armstrong's analysis. This is the introduction of an overt blasphemy law. If you're not able, as vile as it might be to burn any book, if you're prohibited from doing it and you're incarcerated for doing it, that's basically a blasphemy law. And it's a very, very sad day for the United Kingdom that this should have happened. The only point I would perhaps develop a bit on what Sam said is I completely agree that the Prime Minister is no doubt petrified of what the Muslim communities in this country may do with their votes. But I suspect that the Prime Minister, not suspect, I know actually, I'm not going to beat around the bush. The Prime Minister's sympathies aren't with the Christian majority in this country. The Prime Minister, and I would say vast majority of his front bench, actually believe in the vastly damaging experiment of multiculturalism.
Yeah.
They see some benefits coming from having lots of disparate cultures which haven't integrated into our basically Christian heritage in this country. They see that as a positive. And on their heads be it, frankly, because it's the experiment that they have played and it's not paying off for the British people.
It certainly isn't paying off the British people. We've been talking a lot today about the defence, strategic defence review, and about protecting our country. A lot of people are pointing out, you know, not even able to protect our borders when it comes to men who aren't even armed with a passport, let alone a rifle or any other weaponry coming to our shores. We've now got a prediction of some 50,000 illegal channel migrants. That's just the ones coming across on the dinghies, not the ones who are coming across on the lorries, still in the back of the lorries, not the ones who are coming here legally on a tourist, work or student visa and then miraculously discover they're really an asylum seeker when they're supposed to go back to their home country. On Saturday alone, we had almost 1,200 people arrive just in one day. What do we do about this? Because it does seem that, well, Rishi Sunak didn't stop the boats, and it doesn't seem like the current Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is smashing the gangs.
So, I mean, an extension of the terrible experiment that has been multiculturalism and the promotion of effectively foreign cultures to the detriment of British culture, an absolute bedfellow of that ideology is that anyone who wishes to come to the United Kingdom pretty much should be allowed to come in. There's not a recognition of the requirement to protect British civil society or that being a British citizen affords you any particular rights in this country. The basic form of governance that we practice is that, you know, everyone is essentially welcome. And in the pursuit of this welcoming approach that we have, we've taken down our borders in every sense, both legally as well as those seeking to enter the country illegally. There's no control exercised on it because it suits the Prime Minister and so many of his colleagues and predecessors' effective ideology. And it does seem absolutely, if not ironic, at least paradoxical, perhaps the Prime Minister could explain, that he has any eye on the defence of the country when he's not prepared to enforce our borders. Why waste money on the military if you can simply cross the channel unarmed?
Well, this is the interesting thing, and again we have the concerns about these recent claims that Iranians were smuggled into the country to carry out terror attacks, on these boats. There's no doubt at all. We've had numerous reports from our security agencies saying this is an issue. What's interesting today, though, is a leading French MP. This is Eleanor Carrois. She's a member of Macron's Renaissance Party in the French National Assembly. She has blamed Britain's decision to quit the EU for the surge in migrants crossing the Channel in small boats. Of course she has. She said the numbers have been increasing since Brexit, which meant that Britain no longer had a returns agreement with the EU and a very weak asylum policy. She said, we represent an El Dorado for migrants because of our attractive benefits and asylum system. Ain't that the truth? She's right about one thing. But she basically said, look, we provide the demand for them and they know they're not going to be returned because of Brexit. Is that a fair argument?
No, it's absolute garbage. The reason we've got a problem in this country is, in significant part, I would say, because of the EU, because of the Schengen zone, because there are no borders in Europe. We've talked about how our country is now governed without borders. It's actually formally the case in the European Union that there are no borders if you're a member of the Schengen zone. So once you arrive in Italy or the Balkans or Greece, you can make your way across Europe without any impediment, without anyone challenging you, get to the beaches of Calais, and then you get the insipid British response at the border of our territorial waters. I wouldn't say insipid. You get a cup of tea and a Kit Kat and a warm blanket, then you get
free dental care, a home.
Absolutely. And it's a complete collapse in political will across Western civilization to protect our civil society. It's a complete collapse, and it affects Europe as much as it affects the United Kingdom.
Although it's interesting, some actions are being taken in Europe now, which obviously, if they were being done here, Keir Starmer would totally disapprove of. Just so you know, Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary for the Conservatives, he's challenging the government today to halt the fishing deal we've got, which is basically handing over our fishing rights for another 12 years. It's mind-blowingly, no one can understand why, until France makes good on its pledge to stop the small boats at sea rather than paying their police officers to video it and smoke their gauloises on the beach while the people smugglers make their fortunes. It's understood, actually, interesting, that Stephen Wolfe has put together some figures and suggests that actually we're looking at £1 billion being earned by the migrant smugglers since 2018, making so much money on these boat crossings. But actually, we should be talking a little bit tough. We're giving what, £500 million a year to the French to stop people getting in the boats. They're not stopping people getting in the boats. You don't get rights to our fishing waters. Would you agree with that?
I mean, as the illegal crossings have multiplied, we've given France more and more money. Actually, what we've in effect created is a positive loop between the more people they send us and the more money we give them. They recognize, therefore, that they've got to keep this trade going in order to get our money. We've the complete moral hazard in our approach with dealing with the French. What we need to be is tough with the French and absolutely remove their fishing licenses. Of course, that would be the end of the trade and cooperation agreement that we've entered into with the EU, and I would be delighted by that. But actually, fundamentally, Julia, it comes back to simply enforcing our borders. There is no excuse for not doing that. And you might recall last week there was a Dunkirk celebration with a flotilla of British boats celebrating the terrific evacuation of British troops in 1940. And it had to make way for some dinghies that wanted to get from France to the United Kingdom illegally.
Just national humiliation.
The imagery of the imagery is sickening.
Ben Habib, really enjoy having you on. Thank you so much for joining us. Former Deputy Leader of Reform UK. I think he speaks for an awful lot of our audience there. Sam Armstrong, do you not?
This isn't that complicated.
It's not, though, is it? You're right, that's the thing. It just isn't.
Just do what you promised you would do to the British public. Do what is necessary. Get it done. You can stop it tomorrow. This is a world, this is a country, this is society. We can get submarines under water that nuclear powered that can wipe out Moscow tomorrow. We can stop guys coming across the border in Channel.
And if we can't, if you're a Prime Minister, you can't stop it. You shouldn't be Prime Minister.
They can stop it. They are choosing not to.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
12:48
is the time. We're going to take a quick break.